I'll be back soon. So today we're going to continue our journey into developing spiritual foundations. And our talk today will be divided by the healing list. Perhaps not so long today. And the first half of the talk is to both recap where we are and also to detail the steps that must be taken. And then I will detail, after the healing list, how to take those steps, why, and the exercises one can run to help protect oneself. This process that we are following, the development of spiritual foundations, this talk is an elemental, a pivotal point that is quite important in the development of what is to come. So it should not be avoided. This process should not be unrecognized and skipped over. If you do, then what is to come and even what was will be very weak, and the foundations never truly set. So it's important to follow this process, and if you can see yourself, either now or in the past, within this process, you will also start to feel exactly what is occurring, and this will make it quite real for you rather than just being a nice talk. So it is the feeling of this as much as it is the thinking and consideration of the talk that will help you. So let us begin. We began the series by talking about spiritual bypassing. And bypassing was the floating above the world, saying, I am too spiritual for that. I will avoid and meditate my way out of these problems. I will not be involved. Spirit will take care of it. God will take care of it. This will all work out in the end, and I do not need to do anything about it. It is both avoidance and detachment. Avoidance of circumstance and also of responsibility. It is a detaching from the realism of what is occurring. And interestingly, the people undertaking spiritual bypassing gain a lot of energy within their head. All throughout their head, their crown and third eye and throat chakra may all register and may give associated discomforts within that area. The energy is retained here and not fully channeled away, and the illnesses become more and more significant. The person is avoiding the base chakra by living in the head chakras and undertaking the appropriate activities to avoid the real world, the real physical world, I should say. It does not mean that they have any success. Rather, they prefer what feels good or is vibrating highly than what down there is vibrating quite heavily. So this was the avoidance taking place, and one should recognize where they are in this. And last week we looked at sacred boundaries and said people then form boundaries around themselves and attempt to protect themselves from the exterior world. They develop a mantra which says no. They put walls around. They may become like stone or ice when dealing or confronted with difficult parts of their life. They build a boundary, no matter how fine it is or how strong they think it is, and they say that will be enough. And this boundary is, I use the example of being like the ocean and the shore. It is the definition of where you end and where I begin. And they say no matter how stormy the ocean and how big the waves crash upon the shore, They do not disturb the shore at all. And here these boundaries become as glamorous as the person wants them to be. But if there's nobody behind the boundary, and this is the truth here, if there is no person behind the boundary, then it is like living a ghost story. The boundary fences may be as bright and beautiful as they could be, but without the presence of a person behind them, the gates just blow in the wind and the weeds tumble along the path. And within a short period of time, that boundary that one has established is overrun, or it falls. And the toxic person, the troublesome neighbour, the painful situation becomes real once more. And no boundary can be supported without the weight of presence behind its walls. So interestingly, those people with these boundaries may also discover that they increase their physical weight during these times. It is the weight of protection, a weight of comfort that they store around their body with the intent of protecting what is inside the physical body, perhaps their mind and their heart. And this weight then becomes one where not only does it protect the boundary, but it can shield one from even the sensation of love being sent. One may not fully comprehend the amount of love that is in one's life, only the protection that is there behind this boundary. This is a very difficult situation for any person if they refuse to move in behind the boundary, and rather it be words for the boundary to be who they are. The nervous system that is triggered so much by the difficulties they face still felt working throughout the body, and the discomfort is on the inside. So they may be stone or ice on the outside, but on the inside it is very different. Inside, the nervous system is running wild. Perhaps they will have difficulty sleeping, they will have agitation, they will have a rampant mind that does not settle. They'll find that they cannot sit still, that they must always be moving and doing. And again, this is a combination of both bypassing and a boundary that is not being lived in. If they want to be true to this, they cannot just build a wall and hope and pray and mantra their way out of it. They must do something more. So they have been very good architects, very good at avoiding, very good at saying all the right things, but feeling completely opposite. They say, and they do, and they are all out of alignment. What they feel, they attempt to say, but it doesn't work. And what they say, often they try to back up with action. But this has not worked either, or to a limited degree. So now we must take a step into embodiment, to turn this ghost story into a real life, person and situation. How they must then move truly and confidently through any and all of the situations they may face. How they cease to be the architect and to start being the tenant within the boundary walls. To start to establish themselves in their truth of who they are and where they are. So perhaps one of the greatest spiritual exercises anyone can do is to be present to the body. To the body where it is, how it feels, its nervous system, and everything that is going on, well, around the skin and within the skin. Simply by being here and being honest and truthful with oneself is a big step. Rather than having the avoidance of bypassing, one becomes present and builds walls or boundaries to that presence. The building of these boundary walls or fence must have a gate, and the gate will allow what one wants to come through, but not anything else. So the boundary is very much within the mind, yet is often seen within the body, because one's attitude is different, and perhaps, as I said, there is the possibility of a over-energized mind that is agitated, and the physical body feeling like, and perhaps even displaying, an increase in physical weight. Now, as we go to the second half of the talk later, and if one gets totally established in that location with what I am to suggest, then that mind and that physical weight will start to return to normal. It is a normal process that one can bypass to some degree. As I said, some people are extremely adept at it. It is also a normal physical process within this level of human existence to build boundaries around oneself. But as those people get more spiritually attuned and advanced, these needs may change. So the second half of the talk in a moment is about how to stop being the architect and to start being the tenant. So let us take our pause just there. May I have the healing list of names now, please?
Sharon, Crippa, Barbara, Bernard, Jane, Tim, Jasmine, Harriet, Lena, Angela, Cassio, Fabio, Mitsuki, Munahide, Keiko, Anne Joel, Joy, Lucy Loveridge, Ben Wielden, Kathleen and Anne, Chris and Howard, Stephen, Matthew, Eric, Peter, Mirabai, Louise, John, Marianne, Jody, Jill, Katie, Ed, Don, Jules, Vincent, Eileen, Irene, Joe and Xander, Ashley, Taylor and Monica, Jane, Rick, Kate, Lorna, Amrita and Cindy N, Lulu, Craig Harini, Mary, Geraldine, John, Jack Broughton, and Christopher and family, Kari, Benkat, Srinivas, Henry, Philip, Sharon, Amanda and Bob, Cynthia, Linda, Eduardo, Claudio, Alex K, Amanda, Alex, Brett, Karen, Ross, Lily, Aidan, Abby, Kathy, Cecil, Max, David, Ricky, Barbara, Sheila, Tracy, Karen, Kerry, Helen, Harini, Benedict, Joe, Nicole, Sharon, Bill, Noah, Sarah, Mark, Georgia, June, Brevin and Jody, Robert D, Jean D, David A, Sue S, Chris P, Joanne, Audrey and Deborah, Susanna, Chris and Sunny, Janine, Jessie and Jerry, Spencer, Daniel, and may all be happy.
So it is time to stop being the architect and to start being the tenant of oneself. If bypassing is creating a mirage that is lived, the boundaries, if they're not truly enforced, will mean that one day they will fall over. And if they're not supported by the weight of oneself, the individual can start to feel like an imposter within their own body. They say they have the boundaries, but when they are confronted by the event, the circumstance, the toxic family member, or the difficult friend, as soon as that name comes up, they start to feel a dread within inside them. Perhaps their legs begin to shake when they are confronted by the angry manager. There is a feeling of sickness that develops in the pit of their stomach when they must deal with something that is difficult or painful. So the boundaries must be reinforced, and they must be reinforced with the weight of presence. It is the weight that resists the door being opened. It is the weight that is within those walls that then says to another, I will reinforce my boundaries. They are real, they are permanent, they are here, they are not just nice words. So the ability to be present within your boundaries and to be real within that presence at first may seem rather difficult, but must be undertaken. So the boundary then does not become some fictional wall within the mind and spoken by the voice, but one lives as the boundary. One says no and then reinforces it with a presence that is there. So unless that presence is there, the other person will not truly recognize the credibility of your boundary. So, to begin with, you must say no and live no. You must feel within you that very feeling that is there and must be recognized first as either the resistance, but then what is to be followed by as the living truth. The boundary is the sense of self, the sense that you are here, you are worthy, and you are lovable. The more reinforced within you this feeling of self-worth and being lovable, then the stronger the boundaries can be. If you do not feel lovable, you do not feel worthy of even being in a certain vicinity, then your boundaries become soft, easily moved and shifted, and perhaps change from 1 minute to the next. My answer is no, and then my answer is maybe. So the words are spoken in this case, but never backed up. So if you think or remember what I said at the beginning, those with bypassing will have strong energy in the mind that they refuse to bring into the world or down to the base chakra. And those who are struggling with boundaries, here the energy is felt so much that one must be protective of oneself, resulting in potentially, not always, but potentially an increase in physical weight. The secret here is the flow of energy. First, one must be present and one must watch and understand what is occurring. So you must be conscious of where you are in this cycle. Are you lost in number 1 or number 2? And if so, number 3 then is, at least in part, your salvation. So if there's excess energy in the higher chakra, in the head chakras, part of that process is to change that. So let us detail a potential circumstance you may confront with a toxic friend coming to see you. And you are aware of that sensation within your body, the knot in the stomach and the shaky legs of not wanting to confront what is to occur. Now, if you are present, you will recognize the sensations, and your boundaries then must be felt and enforced. So the first part is to know that the energy is strong within your mind, and you wish to run away, to bypass, to pretend that you're not available today. I would love to attend, but I can't be there. And as soon as you recognize that energy that is within or around your head, bring it down. Focus on the energy flowing downwards. Let it flow all the way down to your base chakra, so that it is not retained and exaggerated within the mind. but otherwise you will go to bypassing. So bring the energy right down to the base and feel it. Be aware of it. Don't just think it's a lovely picture, but actually feel the downward flow of the energy away from the mind. This will give you presence of being here, and all chakras and all part of your nervous system will be present. Now, this can further exaggerate some emotions within you. And you need to do the second part. And the second part is to honor your skin. To feel the skin and to feel where your physical body starts and stops. To feel the touch of your clothes, to feel the weight of the body, to feel the air brushing past the hairs on your arms, to feel the boundary of your skin, and to consciously do it, not just acknowledge it and pretend it's there, but to actually feel this skin being your boundary of self. And this gives you a definite presence of being here. You should then start to feel the weight of the body. The weight of the body that is sitting on the chair and the weight of the body that is standing perhaps on the floor. Your physical weight internally, and it may seem a little heavier than what you thought. But this brings you right into the present moment. It moves you away from head, establishes your boundary, and then puts the weight behind the boundary. And this says to another, I am here. And the act of connecting to body rather than mind means the mind will not run further than perhaps you want it to. And the fourth part of this process is often said as the meditation on your bones. Now, this is not a complex or a long task because we make it the most simple because of the situation you are in. So now you breathe deeply as if you could breathe your breath into the very bones and skeleton that you have. And this establishes your energy in your rigidity, which is capable of moving or capable of being resistant to being moved. So you've changed the need to avoid and detach, to live in fight and flight, to establish oneself within oneself, to retain what is glorious within you and allow it to be in all situations. It is then that you look towards the boundaries of no that you may have created and now honour them with the weight of your presence being here. You see, a boundary with no embodiment is like a suit of armour, very rigid, very heavy, very cumbersome, difficult to move around. But the boundaries with embodiment, our presence, our being here despite what is there. And in being embodied within your boundaries, safe within there, knowing there is a sense of one's self, the act of self-love, the act of being lovable, the very essence of one's self-esteem, the primary 2 points, they must now start to develop and grow. You will know that at some stage, if you have said to a friend quite genuinely, that is not right, the answer is no, or whatever must be said. Once you've confronted that and done it in the correct way, one feels more genuine, more real, more established in oneself, that the boundaries have not just been built, they have been reinforced. They have been lived, not just a nice word on a piece of paper. The boundaries of you then become strong, not because they are bigger and better, but because they are within you. And those boundaries then, where once they needed to be glamorous, now are just part of the internal world. And it is very difficult for any person to trample over, to control, to manipulate one who has a sense of self. If that person wishes to concede, they can concede without any loss to one's sense of self. If they wish to say no, they can say no and feel good about themselves. They have not tried to avoid or pretend or hope and pray that the boundaries are strong enough. Rather, they have faith in themselves and they know all is well. And those boundaries then start to expand and change. They may, rather than be made of wood and stone, become made of love and presence. The boundaries which were so rigid become softer. They become softer because what they are protecting can no longer be damaged. The sense of you becomes greater or more established when you are present to life. When you have not avoided and not just hoped your way through life, but you have faced life. And you have faced it knowing and having confidence that you are internally safe and strong. So it is when you fall into the water, the deep end of the swimming pool, you no longer pretend the water does not exist. You no longer then seek the flotation devices which may assist you. But first you acknowledge that you are in the water. And you acknowledge the water is on the outside. And you acknowledge then the sense of self on the inside. And then we move into how to act and how to live. And that is to come. But unless you get this work right first, your actions will become unfounded in any truth. Your spiritual work will come and go and fall and crumble. Your self-esteem, never established, will never be found in something external. But unless you have the self-esteem on the inside, no fame or fortune will ever give it to you. You'll always be at the whim of your finances or your environment because they hold your self-esteem. But with this simple four-parted exercise, bringing the energy down, sensing the skin, sensing the weight of presence, being fully here, is all about establishing of self. To be with yourself, regardless of anything external. Know that you are first on your spiritual path. You are first in the world. Honour that. And if anger was to come to you, honour that there is anger. If in your exercises you feel the rise of anger, let the anger be there for a while. It doesn't have to stay, but it may be useful for a brief period. But let it go once it's done its job. Let your emotions be felt and the energy be there. And then we will regress deeper in time. There is no point on day one saying you are spirit if you cannot first establish yourself in the physical world. So it is through the world that your depth is found. It is not out there trying to get in. It is the establishment of in and then the release of it into the world. And you can only do that by being present and allowing whatever that presence means or displays to then be recognized and perhaps even used for a while before we take the journey beyond it. So this talk, called Radical Embodiment, is the establishment of oneself as the tenant within yourself, the right for you to be here, and the right for you to be you and not dependent on something or somebody else. All of this work must be done with the presence of mind. And we will continue our journey next week as we establish yourself and then look forward and out. Until next week, may God bless you all.